Then marry those that please you of other women, 2 or 3 or 4. But if you fear that you will not be just, then marry only one. Bismillah, alhamdulillah, wassalatu wassalam ala rasulillah. Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh. You're listening to the Niqabi Diary series, Polygyny Talks. What follows is a sister's account of her experience with polygyny. Due to the nature and sensitivity of the topic, some sisters have chosen to remain anonymous. This series was put together in a humble attempt to gain a better understanding of the relevance of polygyny in our times and how it is practiced. Please be respectful in your comments. Finally, I thank all the sisters who have taken part by sharing their stories. May Allah bless you and your families with an abundance of khair in this world and the next, and may Allah accept from us. Ameen. Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh. Welcome to another episode of the Polygyny Talks. Alhamdulillah, we have with us a sister who is going to share with us her polygyny story with us, inshallah. Assalamu alaikum, sister. If you'd like to just tell us, how did you get into polygyny?
Wa alaikum assalam wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuhu. Basically, around 6 years ago, my dear husband, he wanted to take a second wife, and that's how we got into polygyny.
Okay, so can you just, so I understand from this that you are the first wife. So could you let us know, sister, how was that experience for you and how did you deal with it? Was it something that you was expecting, or had you spoken with your husband about it previously? Had he mentioned it to you that this was something he would like to do at some stage?
Actually, me and my husband, we had this sort of understanding that if he does in the future want to take a second wife, I'm fine with it. And I personally felt that it was going towards that. And when my husband did bring it up, it wasn't that much of a shock because I was kind of like, okay, it seems to be going that way. And alhamdulillah, yeah, he did speak to me about it, and I was fine with it, alhamdulillah. And yes, that's how it happened.
Okay, alhamdulillah. So did he involve you in his selection at all, or was it just something he did, solely by himself?
Actually, I sort of knew the person. I had met her before, so I was aware of who she is, and yeah. So I mean, I wasn't like involved in the. Of course, in the end, it's his decision. But yani, he spoke to me about it, and he brought it up, and we discussed, and that's how it was. So it wasn't like someone who was a complete stranger. I had never met her before. I had met her.
Okay, alhamdulillah. So do you believe that because you had previously, mentioned, like, kind of like accepted it, did that make that? Do you think that is something that made it easier for you to accept?
Yes, I would say that. Yes. And of course, like when you know the other person a little bit, it made it better because, mashallah, she's a lovely sister. She's a very kind person, and someone who is a, a, a good human being, a good Muslim. And I think that's very important that if the other person is also someone who understands their rights and duties and is connected to Allah, then you can expect good. And so you give good, you get good. That's my opinion.
Okay, alhamdulillah. So would you say that it's something that's commonly practiced in your culture?
Actually, not at all.
Okay, subhanallah. So do you know any other sisters who are also in polygyny?
I do not know. No, I don't know anyone.
So what qualities would you say are important for a woman to have in order to be in polygyny?
For me, personally, I think the most important thing that a person should have is their connection to Allah. If your connection is strong, and that's the main thing, and to have a strong self-esteem, and to don't take things personally in the sense, like, if your husband does want to take a second wife, it's not necessarily about you. Don't make it about yourself, and to be able to see the bigger picture, in my opinion, that's very important.
Okay, alhamdulillah. Um, and for the men, like, what qualities do you think are important for them to have to be in polygyny? And please go into as much detail as possible, inshallah.
For men, yes. Well, first thing, a person, a man, a husband has to have the fear of Allah in his heart if he is going to take this step, because otherwise things can get messy. And he has to try his best to be just and caring and understanding. And a man really needs to understand that a woman is very different from him, and the sort of feelings that might come from this situation, he might not see them as something big, but every emotion matters to the woman, and even the little things can sometimes seem big. And it's just very important for a man to just be strong yet gentle and caring and understanding and a good listener, and to be able to listen to different things and balance things out.
Okay, subhanAllah. So at which stage in your marriage was it that he took a second wife?
We had been married for 6 years, and then around after that time, he brought it up, and that's when he took a second wife. Yeah. So 6 years we were married, and 6 years since he has had a second wife as well.
Okay, alhamdulillah. So some people would say, well, oh, maybe this sister, she doesn't love her husband. Or has anybody ever approached you and said something like that to you, like asked, questioned you about, your acceptance of polygyny, maybe a relative or, even a friend, and how could you get involved in something like that? Because some people would say maybe you don't love your husband or question your love for your husband, that you would, feel okay with him doing such a thing.
Actually, that's a really good question. And in my opinion, perhaps love means different things to different people. In my opinion, this is also love. And this is a very pure kind of love. Because first thing is that, again, as I said earlier, this isn't about me. I cannot take it personally, or that, oh, he wants to do this, maybe he doesn't love me anymore, or I don't love him, then I'm letting, and that I am okay with it. The point is that my love for him and his love for me is a separate thing. This is our relationship, and alhamdulillah, alhamdulillah, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala has blessed us with immense love in our relationship, and may Allah keep that going. Ameen. And love for me is kindness and compassion and respect and caring for each other and listening to each other and acknowledging feelings and working on them. And is the little things that matter. It's not the grand gestures, it's the little things in your everyday life, being there for each other, caring for each other, respecting each other. That to me is love. And in the end, people say things what they want to say. And yes, people have said similar things, not in the nicest ways at times, but that's their opinion. To me, what matters is my relationship with my husband, his love towards me, my love towards him. That's what matters. And Alhamdulillah, Allah has blessed us with a lot of love and understanding.
Alhamdulillah. So, how would you say in your, in your husband, from your perspective, how is your husband balancing, um, you know, between both wives, and how is he managing to maintain this balance?
Alhamdulillah, I would say that he is doing really well. And, like one day here and one day over there. Yeah, he takes care of everything. Alhamdulillah, he gives time and attention. That is the main thing. And of course, taking care of all of his duties and responsibilities towards his wives and his kids. So, Alhamdulillah, he does all of that in the best way.
Alhamdulillah. So, can he provide for the family financially? I always ask this question because, from some people's experiences, and I know this is true for some sisters, for example, in the UK, what happens is that because of the benefit system, some brothers use that as a way to take advantage of sisters and get into polygyny without actually providing for them financially. So, is your husband fully financially providing for you and your co-wife?
Yes, Alhamdulillah. Yes, he is.
And what about the children that are involved in the family? Do they understand the situation of polygyny? And if so, do they have any comments or like thoughts about it?
Sure. Actually, before I answer that, I'll just get into one thing with regards to the children involved. So my co-wife, she has three kids from her previous marriage, and I have me and my husband. We have three kids. Um, their kids, sorry, what I mean is my co-wife's children from her previous marriage. They are a different age group, so they are elder kids. And when their mother got married to my husband, they were older, so they understood what was happening and everything. And as for me and my husband's kids, our eldest is 8 years old. So she does know. And once we were reading the story of Prophet Ibrahim, when actually this came up, she said something along the lines of, nobody has two wives. So then I thought that that was a good point to bring it into the conversation. Then I reminded her, oh, you remember this auntie? And yeah, she's your baba's second wife. And she was like, oh, okay, that's nice. I didn't know that. So then I brought this into the conversation with her. As for my other two kids, they're still a bit younger, so they wouldn't understand. But inshallah, in a few years when they are able to understand, I will also, of course, speak to them about it.
Allahumma barik, that's really beautiful, mashallah. It's really beautiful the way that you introduced it to your daughter, and very clever, Allahumma barik, subhanallah. So, mashallah, I never even thought about that, because that's something that, obviously very small children, they do hear about prophet stories all the time. That's something usually we teach them, about the stories of the prophet. So, mashallah, I haven't heard any sister even say that. That's one of the ways that it's been introduced to their children. But alhamdulillah, it's very, very clever. And I think it's helped it to make more sense and bring that kind of modern day relevance of polygyny as well for your daughter too.
Yes, alhamdulillah, yes.
So do your children, I know you said they're different age groups, but do they get the opportunity to mix with her children at all?
In the beginning, yes, we did, but then life got very busy, and those kids also have different commitments, universities, and other things. And my kids also have school, so we don't really get the time. Maybe once a year, we might get the chance to. But I must say that my husband's other wife, every Eid, she sends them gifts, and which is very lovely. So whenever she sends, I do tell the kids that this is from her, at least the eldest one who understands. So so they know that these are from their father's other wife.
Alhamdulillah. So is your co-wife also living in the same country as you as well? Like, how does your husband maintain the traveling distances and things like that?
Uh, Actually, we live in a pretty small country, and the distance between our home and the other home is, I would say, like 7 to 10 minutes of drive. So it's not very far, and yeah, so that's the traveling is not an issue at all. Alhamdulillah, benefits of a small country.
Alhamdulillah, alhamdulillah. So what about your family? I wanted to ask, what about your family? Were they supportive for you to be in polygyny?
Actually, not at all. And honestly speaking, for me, when my husband did take a second wife, my husband taking a second wife was not a big deal for me that much emotionally. For me, the bigger deal was actually how my family reacted, especially my. I'm getting a bit emotional remembering that. Especially my parents, because I come from a culture where it's not accepted, and mostly there are just horror stories related to this. So I do understand where my parents were coming from, but at this, they didn't understand why I was okay with it, and that made for some pretty, I would say, like tense few weeks, I would say. And some of the things that were said, of course, like they're my parents, so they said it at that time, especially my mother, in her worry for me, I would say, she said a few things that I think about sometimes, and they just make me tear up. I mean, it's been a few years, but of course, it's your mom, so when she says such a thing, it kind of sticks with you for some time. But alhamdulillah. And so they were not okay with it, but alhamdulillah, slowly, slowly, as time passed, they began to see that my husband is, alhamdulillah, a good man who's balancing and providing, and the love is still there, and there's no injustice happening, inshallah. And um, and one of the toughest parts was actually, I would say, for the first 2 years, maybe, after his second marriage, basically my parents' opinion of my husband changed quite drastically, which really hurt me a lot. And but alhamdulillah, I seriously, in those times, I made lots of dua to Allah, oh Allah, just make that relationship between my husband and my parents the same as before, because it used to be wonderful. So for 2 years or 2.5 years, it was really not a good relationship, I would say. But alhamdulillah, after that, Allah changed their hearts, And alhamdulillah, now it's a good relationship again. And I cannot tell you how important that is, and what sort of joy that brings me, that they are, alhamdulillah, my parents are back on the same page with my husband and as they were before.
Alhamdulillah, may Allah reward you for your patience, sister, subhanAllah, and perseverance. Obviously, I can tell it was a very difficult time for you. And I think sometimes, some sisters may not, whether they're in polygyny or not, they don't understand the importance of, your parents having that acceptance for your spouse and how
Yes.
important it is, especially when, you have a good man in your life. It's really important because, the last that as women, we need to respect our husbands, but not only that, we want our families to accept them and appreciate them, and that, because that's part of the way the marriage will be supported, inshallah. So it's always important that we don't let our parents have a bad impression about our spouses, alhamdulillah. I wanted to ask if you or your co-wife are working. Do you how do you take up or use your spare time away from your husbands?
My co-wife does work. I, on the other hand, do not. I take care of my kids basically because they're still small, and yeah, I'm just most of the day I'm busy with the home and just doing some fun stuff also, and busy with the kids. Alhamdulillah.
What advice would you give to any sister who is thinking about entering into polygyny?
I think the first advice would be to just have a strong relationship with Allah, and just remember that men and women are different. That is, I think, very important to understand. And secondly, to just be your own self, because if you have your own strong identity, you have a strong sense of self esteem. That's very important, to be confident in your own self, to be comfortable with your own self, so that you don't make everything about yourself, because sometimes things aren't. And I think this is very important, to remember that women are different and men are different, and to just have understanding and respect for your husband. Yeah.
Okay, inshallah. So, in your personal experience, what do you feel some of the benefits of polygyny have been for you?
I would say, Alhamdulillah. I mean, one thing is that it does give you some free time, and which is actually good at times. So you can focus on some of your own things, and the interests, if one has to pursue, you can focus on those also. And one of the benefits I see this, for example, that let's say the one of the wives is on her periods or something, and the husband wants to have sexual relations, so there is another wife, he can have relations with. And I feel that is also very important, especially in today's hypersexualized world. And besides that, to it just makes for a nicer overall family experience for us, at least, that I know that my husband, when he's not with me, he is with his other wife. He's not into some sort of bad stuff or some affairs and things like that. That is very important, because in today's world, I feel that these things are very common, more common than people would like to admit. And polygamy is something that is, alhamdulillah, allowed by Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. And it helps men as well to be able to enjoy relations in a halal way, and while fulfilling the rights. And also, one of the very main benefits, in my opinion, is that in this world currently, there are lots of good women who, for whatever reasons, ended up getting married to not very good men. And if they had perhaps the option of getting married to some good men once they get out of their previous marriages, previous abusive marriages, perhaps they might make that decision. And if there are good men who do consider polygamy, and good women who are also fine with it, that their husband has more than one wife, this overall makes for a better society, where people care about each other. And I feel overall the main thing is it leads to a better, happier society.
Alhamdulillah, sister. So, I just want to ask you an additional question in relation to what you just mentioned, because some sisters might say, okay, well, why does a man have to marry another woman in order to be able to give her that financial support that, and these kind of things, because sometimes just to say things like that, a man can support a woman and help her out without being married to her.
Perhaps to a limit, but the point is that let's say if a sister is divorced, are finances the only thing that a woman needs? Women also have needs, sexual needs, and and you can say, and one can say that, oh, oh, no, but the point is that women also have sexual needs, and when they get married to a man, they are not getting only finances. They are getting much more. You have a friend, a support, a protector, and that is not something that only finances can give.
Okay, alhamdulillah. So what do you think is important for men to understand when they think about entering into polygyny?
For a man to understand, I think the number one thing is that a man needs to understand that women are different than men. And the sort of feelings that a woman might feel over particular things, they might not understand immediately. So they really have to get in tune with trying to understand. And the thing is that when it's only one wife, it's different. But when you have more than one wife, of course, they are two different people, two different hearts, two different sets of feelings, two different personalities. So a man really has to balance the act. He has to balance how he listens to both of them. And a man has to be strong in his judgment. In the sense, what I mean is that, Alhamdulillah, I am blessed with a wonderful co-wife. بس يعني, if there are some women who might maybe say some negative things about the other wife, the man has to really be strong enough to be like, no, this is a line that must not be crossed. You are my wife, she's my wife. So this is very important for a man to understand that both of them are his wives, they both have equal rights, they both deserve his time, his respect, his care, his understanding, and one must not be prioritized over the other. That is very important. And one of the main thing for, of course, a man to remember is not to take this lightly. This is something that they will be held accountable for. I believe that in this sense, men men have it harder in the sense that Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala is going to hold them accountable about how they treat all of their wives. And that is something that is not to be taken lightly, of course. And always to remember Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. That's the main thing.
Absolutely, sister. SubhanAllah. Allah Mubarak and Jazakallah khair, sister, for taking the time today to share your experience in polygyny. Alhamdulillah. We also sometimes we do get people asking, we need to hear more from the first wives, because I think, as I said, the question earlier that I was asking you, some people find it maybe inconceivable that a wife would agree to, the husband's going in polygyny, which obviously I've spoken to a few first wives now, and alhamdulillah, they was all very accepting about it. And I know that this isn't always the case, but it's important to definitely hear from the women, especially the first wives, just and not because the other wives aren't important, obviously, but I think because a sister that I spoke to recently, she mentioned that when it comes to the plural marriage, when the husband is going to take subsequent wives, it's the first wife. She's the one that will probably have the feelings hurt at that time, especially in the initial stages, and have to deal with a lot of the changing and shifting in emotions.
That's where the part I said about not taking it personally comes into play, because of course when my husband also took a second wife, there were lots of comments about, I must be a terrible wife, and I must have done something, and this and that. So this is something that you will have to hear depending on what culture you're from. But these things you cannot let people's opinions or people's this thing get to you, of course, and your own feelings. Yes, you feel so many different things at the same time, and this always just go back to Allah, connect, just go back to Allah, and and to remember that your feelings are justified. Yes, it's not that you're feeling something so it's wrong, it's fine, but one must not let their feelings become so strong that you let it destroy your own beautiful marriage that you have.
Absolutely, subhanallah. Alhamdulillah. So, barakallahu feekum, sister. I really appreciate you sharing your experience today. Do you have any final thoughts that you'd like to share?
If there are any sisters who are thinking about it or who are looking into it or whose husbands might be interested but they feel a certain way about it, just really, first of all, make lots of dua to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. Lots of dua. And also to just go into it. Just take your time, sit with your feelings, sort things out before you step into this.
Okay, inshallah. Jazakallah khair. And may Allah bless you and your family abundantly. I mean,
Jazakallah khairan, sister. Thank you for having me. And may Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala bless you and your family. And please continue this wonderful podcast. It's much needed.
inshallah, sister. Inshallah, sister. Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh.
Wa alaikum assalam.